Have you ever watched a music video and wondered just how those incredibly looking beautiful transitions just blend so effortlessly? In this video, I'm gonna dive into the world of deflection. I'm talking about the split-second magic-making technique that makes hard cuts just completely vanish before your eyes. This is done by using a short transition to literally distract your eyes for a fraction of a second until that hard cut passes. All of this miraculously makes the edit just appear 10 times smoother without the viewer really understanding why. Today I'll be unveiling 10 of these blink till you'll miss it deflection transitions that we've crafted in After Effects. I'll be diving deep into the first 6 transitions, giving you a step-by-step walkthrough so that you can master them in your own edits, and giving you the foundation to create the remaining transitions that I will review and go over. Now, if you'd rather have someone else do all these transitions for you, I have packaged them into a handy preset bundle that you can get right in the link below. Let's jump right in. Hey guys, this first transition that we're gonna go over is called the Wave Morph Zoom. The Wave Morph Zoom is the perfect transition that you want to use when you're cutting on action. Cutting on action in the world of video editing refers to the technique of making a cut between 2 shots that are linked by a visual or contextual action. By aligning the cut with a movement or action that is taking place, the transition between the 2 shots feels more fluid and seamless to the viewer. For example, if a character is seen opening a door in one shot, the next shot might begin with the door actually opening from the other side or from a different angle. You are cutting on the action of the door opening. Here's another example. Maybe you have a shot of a baseball player in the middle of a baseball game getting ready to hit a ball. As the bat actually connects with the ball and hits it, the scene then would cut to a wide shot, capturing the ball soaring through the stands for a home run. This seamless cutting on action again emphasizes the ball hit. The Wave Morph Zoom can be used as a stylized garnish to add to the top of a cut on action to almost exaggerate it. It's almost as if the action in that first shot is literally bending space-time as you're transitioning to the next shot. This is how you create a Wave Morph Zoom transition. You first open up After Effects, then you create a new adjustment layer in the timeline panel. Right-click in the empty space below your layers and select New, then go to Adjustment Layer. Then enable the Effects and Preset panel. Skip this if you've opened it up already. Go to the Window menu at the top of the After Effects interface. In the Window menu, you should see a list of panels and panels groups. Look for Effects and Presets in this list, then click on Effects and Presets in the menu. This should open up the Effects and Presets panel on the right side of your After Effects workspace. Next, apply the following effects using the Effects and Presets panel search bar to find them, and once you've found the effects, click and drag them from the Effects and Presets panel onto your adjustment layer in the Timeline panel. These are the effects: Transform, CC Radial Fast Blur, Brightness and Contrast, and Turbulent Displace. Guys, it's important that you actually arrange them in this order in the Effects Control panel. In the Transform effect, move the playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for the Scale property under the Transform effect. Set Scale to 128. Then move 3 frames backward and set the scale to 100. Then move 8 frames forward and set the scale to 100. Next, select all scale keyframes and easy ease them. Then play around with the value graph to add more life to the animation as shown below. Next, set Transform Shutter Angle to 67 and make sure that Use Composition Shutter isn't enabled. Next, on the CC Radial Fast Blur effect, you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for CC Radial Fast Blur amount. Set amount to 73 and move 3 frames backward, and then set amount to 0. Then you're going to move 10 frames forward and set the amount to 0 again. Then select all CC Radial Blur keyframes and easy ease them. Afterward, you're going to play around with the value graph to add more life to the animation as shown below. Now we're going to go to the brightness and contrast effect. For this effect, you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for brightness under the brightness and contrast effect. Set the brightness to 91 and then move 2 frames backward and set the brightness to 0. After that, move 9 frames forward and set the brightness to 0. Now select all keyframes for the brightness and easy ease them. The value graph should look like this. Next, for the turbulent displace effect. On this effect, you're going to start with setting the displacement under the turbulent displace effect to bulge. Afterwards, set the displacement size to 290 and the complexity to 2.5. While holding down Alt on your keyboard, click on the stopwatch icon next to the evolution property and replace the default expression with this, time * 300. Next, you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and move 1 frame forward, then click a keyframe for displacement amount. After that, set displacement amount to 25. Then you're going to move 11 frames forward and set the displacement amount to 0. Next, you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and move 1 frame backward and then set the displacement amount to 0. You're then going to select all of the displacement keyframes and easy ease them. The value graph should then look like this. After that, you should get a wave morph zoom effect that looks like this on any footage that you use it on. Now guys, we're going to talk about the jerk blur transition. This transition seems to work well when you're transitioning to a shot with lateral movement from the right to the left. I'm talking about lateral movement either just in the last shot or in both shots. The jerk blur transition just again adds to the hiding of the hard cut and seems to emphasize that lateral movement. It's really easy to make. All you gotta do is again create an adjustment layer, then apply the fast box blur to that adjustment layer. Then you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and then click on the blur radius stopwatch icon to create a keyframe. Set the blur radius to 47 and set the blur dimension to horizontal and the iterations to 3. Next, move 2 frames back and set the blur radius to 0. Then move 6 frames forward and set the blur radius to 0 again. And this is the resulting transition that you get on any 2 clips that you choose to put it on top of. The next transition we're going to talk about is called the Gleam. The Gleam transition seems to work well in visually representing, I don't know how to quite explain it, something like a burst of energy. You should try implementing it on footage to complement a musical beat drop or a clap. First thing you gotta do is create an adjustment layer and then apply the following effects to that adjustment layer. The mini max effect, brightness and contrast, and the transform effect. Again, please make sure to arrange them in the order that is shown to you right here. Next, you're gonna move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for the mini-max radius and the transform scale. In the case of this video, we're gonna set the mini-max radius to 8, but remember this might differ depending on the footage that you are choosing to use. And then you're gonna set the transform scale to 105. Then you're gonna move 3 frames backward and reset both the mini-max radius and the transform scale to the default values, which are 0 and 100. Next, you're going to move 12 frames forward and reset both the mini-max radius and the transform scale keyframes to the default values. Please make sure that Don't Shrink Edges for the mini-max effect is enabled in the effects controls panel. Next, move your timeline playhead to the point where you want the transition to happen, and then move 1 frame forward, and then create a keyframe for brightness under the brightness and contrast effect. Set brightness to 41, then move 2 frames backward, and then set the brightness to 0. Next, you're going to move 8 frames forward and set the brightness to 0, And feel free to play around with the values and the spacing of these keyframes to your liking. Next, you're gonna finally select all the keyframes and easy ease all of them. The resulting transition that you're gonna get after following all these steps is this. Hey guys, just a reminder for all you lazy video editors out there, remember that you can get all of these transitions as simple one-click drag and drop presets in the description below. They are super convenient, really easy to use, and will save you a ton of time. Guys, this next transition that we're going to cover is one of my favorite. It's called the Chroma Shake. The Chroma Shake is just a really beautiful looking transition. Again, it's one of my favorite deflective transitions that we're going to cover in this series. I usually use it as like the kinetic visual complement to a major audio moment, like maybe a bass drop in a music video. You can create it by, again, creating an adjustment layer. Then you're going to apply the following effects to the adjustment layer. Motion tile, channel blur, directional blur, and brightness and contrast. Please make sure that you arrange them in this specific order. Then you're going to set the motion tile, both the output width and the height, to 400. And make sure that mirror edges is enabled. Then you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur, and create keyframes for both red and blue blurriness under the channel blur effect. Make the red blurriness 42 and the blue blurriness at 86. Now move 5 frames forward and set the red and blue blurriness to 0. Then you're going to move 13 frames forward and set the red and blue blurriness to 0. Make sure the blue dimension is set to horizontal only. Next, you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for the direction blur length. Set the length to 191. Now move 4 frames backward and set the length to 0. Then move 11 frames forward and set the length to 0. Don't forget to easy ease the blur length keyframes and play around with the value graph to add more life to the animation, just like you see in the image right here. Now, next you're going to move the playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and then move 2 frames backward. Then you're going to create a keyframe for directional blur direction, and the direction should be 0 times plus 310 degrees. Now move 4 frames forward and set the direction to 1 times plus 139 degrees. Then you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur, and you're going to create a keyframe for both brightness and contrast properties under the brightness and contrast effect. Set brightness to 51 and contrast to 11. Now move 5 frames backward and set brightness and contrast to 0. Then you're going to move 10 frames forward and set both brightness and contrast to 0. And this is the resulting transition that you're going to get.
When I'm Louis V dripping, don't like stress in my dome, straight to the head when I'm 1942 zipping.
Guys, I'm going to go right in and start teaching you how to do the simple drop-down transition. This transition is best used when cutting on action. Using the simple drop-down transition on top of cutting on action just emphasizes that action to a crazy degree.
Iconic move, my motion, 늘 뭔가 색다른 전시했어. Emotion, back in with a strong ego.
First thing you got to do is go into After Effects, and then you're going to create an adjustment layer. You're then going to apply the following effects to that adjustment layer. Motion tile, directional blur, and brightness and contrast. Please make sure to arrange these effects in the order that I just set them in. Next, you're going to set motion tile output width and height to 400 each. And make sure that mirror edges is enabled. Next, you're going to move the playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for the motion tile center. The first keyframe should look like this. Move 2 frames backward and set another keyframe for the motion tile center. The keyframe value should look like this. Then you're going to move 4 frames forward and set another keyframe for the motion tile center. The keyframe value should look like this. Make sure the directional blur direction is set to 0 degrees as shown below. Then you're going to move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for directional blur length. Then you're going to set the length to 182.7. Now you're going to move 4 frames backward and set the length to 0, and then you're going to move 8 frames forward and then again set the length to 0. Don't forget to easy ease the blur length keyframes and play around with the value graph to add more life to the animation, just like you see right here. Move the playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for both the brightness and the contrast properties under the brightness and contrast effect. Set the brightness to 51 and the contrast to 11. Now move 5 frames backward and set the brightness and contrast to 0. Now move 10 frames forward and set both brightness and contrast to 0. The resulting transition should look like this.
When I'm Louis V dripping, don't like stress in my dome. Straight to the head when I'm 1942 sipping.
The next transition is called the Smoothie, and as its name implies, it offers a juicy seamless blend from one scene to the next. It's kind of a cool one.
Clean it up, get back. Kick it.
First create an adjustment layer, and then apply the following effects to that adjustment layer. Motion tile, twirl, transform, CC lens, brightness and contrast, and directional blur. Please make sure to arrange them in this order. Under motion tile effects, set the motion tile output width and height to 400 each, and make sure that mirror edges is enabled. Disable the CC lens effect for now by clicking on the FX icon before it. Now in the twirl effect, make sure that you move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create a keyframe for angle under the twirl effect. Set the angle to 1 times 0 degrees, then move 2 frames forward and set another keyframe with the same value of 1 times 0 degrees. Move 2 frames forward and set another keyframe for twirl angle and set it at 0 times 0 degrees. Now move 15 frames forward and set a keyframe for twirl angle and set it at 0 times 0 degrees. Altogether, you should have 4 keyframes on the twirl angle alone. Now select them and easy ease them, and then play around with the value graph as shown here. Now we're going to go over and give the transform effect some love. Move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur, move 1 frame backward, and then create a keyframe for the scale property under the transform effects. And set the scale to 30.8. Now move 6 frames forward and set the scale to 100. Now move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur, then move 10 frames backward and set the scale to 100. Select all keyframes and easy ease them. Then you're going to play around with the value graph just as shown in the image below. Please make sure that your transform angle settings look like this. You're now going to enable the CC lens effect. In the CC lens effect, move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and create keyframes for both CC lens size and convergence. Set size to 126 and convergence to 66. Move 6 frames backward and converge to 100. Move another 5 frames backward and set the convergence to 0. Move 5 frames backward and then set the size to 500. Now move your playhead to the point where you want the transition to occur and move 12 frames forward and set the CC lens convergence to 0. And then move 2 frames backward and set the CC lens size to 500. Now select all size and convergence keyframes and easy ease them. And then play around with the value graph as shown here. The CC lens graph should look like this. And the CC lens conversion graph should look like this. Now moving over to the brightness effect. Move your playhead to the point where you want your transition to occur. and then create a keyframe for the brightness slider and set it to 150. Move 2 frames backward and set the brightness to 0, then move 6 frames forward and set the brightness to 0. Now moving on to the directional blur effect, move your playhead again to that point where you want the transition to occur and set the blur direction to 0 times 56 degrees. Now move 1 frame forward and create a keyframe for blur length, set blur length at 137. Then move 4 frames forward and set the blur length to 0. Finally move 7 frames backward and set the blur length again to 0. The resulting transition should look like this. This next transition is called the slot machine side pull with bounce. It's kind of similar to the previously mentioned slot machine drop down transition. This transition plays with a blend of motion effects, lighting changes, and blurring to slide your visuals from one side to the other. I'd say it's pretty dope. Imagine applying this effect to introduce some type of surprise element in your video, or a stylish way to transition in between scenes during some type of fast-paced montage. This next transition is a really nice one. It's called the Mosaic. The Mosaic is like a 90s-based MTV-style transition, and it's a nostalgic nod to an era of bold and stylistic visuals. Using techniques like motion tile, a little bit of blurring, and then dynamic transform adjustments, we've really created a classic-looking visual effect. You can take a look at how I used the Mosaic transition in the following shots. 잠든 귓가에 살까있다 쳐다보다 할퀴고 눈썹대 끝도 없이 속삭이는 목소리 Oh you the bad dream kill 나를 홀려 자꾸 불러 너 있는 곳 그래 내게 오라고 날 안다고 I don't think so 모두 내게 파고들어 I don't think so 넌 내 눈을 가려 I don't think so. Now we're going to talk about the squeeze transition. The squeeze transition adds a dynamic flair by compressing the scene, then rapidly expanding it in just like a fraction of a second. We combined effects like motion towel, then some blurring effects, and then a couple of others, and then we adjusted the sequence just right to get that cool compression expansion feel. Where do I see the squeeze transition shining the most? Again, probably music videos. The next transition that we're going to go over is called the slot machine dropdown. The slot machine dropdown is a dynamic transition. It blends the simple dropdown's essence, that transition that we talked about before, with a little bit of added elasticity. Using the motion tile, transform, and brightness and contrast effects, it gives footage a quick vertical slide with a subtle brightness tweak. Guys, the next transition that we're going to take a look at is called the quick flash. The quick flash is a dazzling transition designed to give just a little bit of lumosity to all of your quick music video edits. Unlike the Gleam transition that relies on keyframing exposure, the quick flash harnesses the allure of a lens flare to brighten the frame. The next transition that we're going to look at is called the roll blur. The roll blur transition is a bit on the simpler side, but think of it as just a practical transition that could be used for, say, stitching together, say, 2 shots that both incorporate a little bit of a lateral movement. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We have a whole new batch of transitions for you in this next video.